In a world afflicted by war, depression, and inequality, one woman redefined power, not through title, but through tireless action, not through fear, but through her voice. She was called First Lady of the World. Her name was Eleanor Roosevelt. Today, we journey through her extraordinary life, from a shy orphaned girl to the architect of human rights. This is a story of courage, compassion, and conviction. Eleanor was born in 1884 into the prestigious Roosevelt family. But behind the wealth lay sorrow. She lost her mother at 8. Her father, beloved but troubled, died soon after. She was sent to Allenswood Academy in England, where she found her voice under the mentorship of headmistress Marie Souvestre. Her teacher encouraged independence and independent thought and empathy. When Eleanor became First Lady, expectations were simple: host dinners and stand smilingly beside the president. She simply refused to do so, of course. Instead, she held press conferences for women reporters only, forcing media outlets to hire female journalists. Brilliant. She toured coal mines, visited migrant camps, and listened to the voices of everyday Americans.
In 1933, FDR rolls out the New Deal, a series of anti-poverty programs to fight the Great Depression. The First Lady is deeply involved.
This was a woman who understood what the nation needed, in many ways was as important to the era as her husband was, because she was out there with the people more than he was.
The reporter Lorena Hickok writes to her about a deprived coal mining area in West Virginia called Scott's Run. Eleanor goes to visit and is shocked by what she sees. As part of the New Deal, $25 million is allocated toward new housing projects for the poor. Eleanor champions the first of these communities for the people of Scott's Run. It's called Arthurdale.
Eleanor became the first first lady to hold regular radio broadcasts. She also wrote a daily newspaper column called My Day for over 2 decades. In it, she shared reflections on civil rights, women's rights, and the plight of the poor. Her tone? Candid, accessible, human. She said, the world is full of appalling suffering, but there's always something we can do. After FDR's death in 1945, many expected Eleanor to retreat from public life. Instead, though, President Truman appointed her to the newly formed United Nations. She became chair of the Human Rights Commission. There, she led the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the most translated document in the world today. She said, "We stand today at the threshold of a great event, a step forward in the world's moral evolution.
I'm very glad to be able to take part in this celebration in St. Louis on Human Rights Day. Ever since the Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was passed in Paris in 1948 on December the 10th, we have fostered the observance of this day not only in the United States, but throughout the world. The object is to make people everywhere conscious of the importance of human rights and freedoms. The reason for that is that these are spoken of and emphasized in the Charter of the United Nations, and the Declaration was written to elaborate the rights already mentioned in the Charter, and to emphasize also for all of us the fact that the building of human rights would be one of the foundation stones on which we would build in the world an atmosphere in which peace could grow. For that reason, all over the world,
Human rights may sound like a big concept, but at the heart of it, it's quite simple. Human rights are the basic things every person deserves just because they're human. The right to be treated with fairness, the right to feel safe, the right to speak, to learn, to love, to live a life with dignity. These rights don't come from a government or law book. They come from something much deeper. The understanding that every human life has value. After the horrors of World War II, the world came together and made a promise. Never again would people be stripped of their humanity. That promise became the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a shared agreement that no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you believe, you deserve respect and freedom. But we all know rights aren't always respected. And when they're denied, the effects are real. People suffer. Families are broken. Whole communities are left behind. When we stay silent in the face of injustice, we let cruelty and fear take root. But when we stand up, even in small ways, when we speak out, when we choose compassion over indifference, we help build a world where everyone matters. Human rights aren't just words on paper. They're about how we treat each other. They're about making sure no one is forgotten, and they're about creating a future where every person has a chance to live fully, freely, and without fear. Eleanor Roosevelt advocated for human rights and racial equality, often clashing with politicians, mostly men. She invited African American guests to the White House and publicly supported civil rights legislation. She wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, facing criticism and even threats. And on the subject of poverty, Eleanor believed that poverty was a moral failure of society, not of the individual. She once said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have little." She championed programs that uplifted the poor and persisted in her tireless advocacy for affordable housing and social security expansion. Even post-White House, she visited slums and rural communities, often to bear witness and to write about injustice. Her death in 1962, Eleanor never stopped working. She chaired JFK's Commission on the Status of Women. She spoke at schools, wrote books, and advised world leaders. Today, her legacy lives in classrooms, legislature, and the hearts of those fighting for dignity. She wasn't elected. She didn't seek glory, but she shaped the face and course of human rights worldwide.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin?
After World War II, it was clear that the horrors of the war should never be allowed to occur again. Founded in 1945, the United Nations sought to prevent future atrocities by affirming, in its foundational charter, faith in fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, and a commitment to promote better standards of life in larger freedom. In the years that followed, member states of the United Nations strived to develop the human rights provisions of the Charter and capture them in a single document. It took 3 years to agree on a common vision. On the 10th of December, 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations.
Still, it is the first step in a great evolutionary process. It is the first occasion on which the organised community of nations has made a declaration of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and it has the authority of the body of opinion of the United Nations as a whole. And millions of people, men and women and children all over the world, will turn for hope and guidance and inspiration to this document.
While history alone can determine the historic significance of an event, it is safe to say that the declaration before us may be destined to occupy an honorable place in the procession of positive landmarks in human history.
The Declaration consists of a preamble and 30 articles, with Article 1 powerfully proclaiming that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. No discrimination, right to life, liberty and security, no slavery, no torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, equal protection of the law, no arbitrary arrest, detention or exile, fair and public hearing, no arbitrary interference with privacy, right to freedom of movement, right to seek and enjoy asylum, right to a nationality, right to marry and to found a family, right to property, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly and association, right to take part in government, right to work, right to rest and leisure, right to food, clothing, housing, medical care and social services, right to education, right to participate in cultural life.
These human rights are not country-specific. They are not a reward for good behavior or particular to a certain era or social group.
Eleanor Roosevelt proved that real power is in believing your truth. It's persistence. It listens. It uplifts. And most of all, it demands dignity for all. Until next time, let's walk forward, look forward for a better future, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home. This has been a Panacea9 podcast, and I'm Gloria Y. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. To support more episodes like this, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. One world, one family. Bye. See you all next week.
From scattered fragments to global unity, healing our world together.
From prisoner to president. In South Africa, during the brutal days of apartheid, a system built to divide black from white, rich from poor, power from people. But one man stood against it. For his defiance, he paid with his freedom. 27 years behind bars. His name was Nelson Mandela. But when he finally walked free from Robben Island, he didn't walk out with vengeance. He walked out with vision. A vision of reconciliation. A vision of a nation brave enough to face its past, not with denial, but with courage.